concentrate.
Yes, please go ahead.
So predominantly we are seeing Europe drive energy savings to the energy initiatives within Europe, which are part of the European mandates to drive down energy management. And we're seeing the rest of the globe actually driving towards 2050 and net zero. And we have COP27, which is coming up over the next sort of in November, to again bring all the nations and all the leaders together to develop more policy and more aggressiveness to drive down kilowatt hours. And as I said before, we all speak different languages, but we all speak the same language of reducing kilowatt hours, reducing emissions and saving our planet. Now, some of my stuff I'll be talking about is biased around the UK. So yes, the UK have developed the Energy Saving Opportunity Scheme, which is ESOS. I'm an ESOS trained consultant that helps lead organizations, and they have to be organizations that are 250 employees and above. In addition to that, we also have the streamlined energy carbon reporting process, which looks at quoted organizations and non-quoted organizations, again, targeting the larger organizations of 250. But in parallel with that, we have the ISO 50,001, excuse my spelling there, but we have ISO 50,001, which is a energy management system, which is a global system that can be utilized across the world. And it's a practice that's been put together by global experts to drive this down, and organizations can sign up for that. Now, we're not really seeing many organizations adopting ISO 50001, which is a shame, but I'm sensing that there is a future for that coming along. I am actually trained as an ISO 50001 consultant to lead that globally. We're actually seeing other initiatives coming out. Independent organizations are driving the likes of the science-based targets initiatives, where they're looking at the science-based, meaning the temperatures. So they're looking at driving their consumption and their carbon footprint down to reflect the temperatures that will be sort of repelled off the back of them initiatives of driving their carbon footprint down. In the UK, we're actually also developing energy consciousness. Now, when you look at energy management, 50% of the energy management savings that can be achieved just through managing people and managing our processes. You know, simple things like turning lights off and on at the right time, turning and changing set points on your air conditioning systems to be correct levels. So there's certain areas there we can look at regarding best practice regarding people that we can utilize to drive energy down. So the UK has been focusing on a legislation called energy consciousness. And it's a very good area to be targeting. And it's one of the biggest areas that I really believe in will actually make a big difference to energy emissions across the world. And then there's global initiatives that are being developed to bring, so, you know, a lot of the initiatives are now in the legislation that we have globally is all about the larger organizations, the bigger organizations, which do make a significant difference. However, we have many, many small to medium enterprises that can also benefit from these legislations, and they can also make a contribution. And if you look at the SMEs probably make up nearly 80% of what we're trying to achieve. So that's another key area to put focus in. But unfortunately, there isn't enough legislation around to address the SME market. So for me, this is the answer for what initiatives are around. There are other global initiatives that we have to help drive this forward.
Okay, so thank you, Paul, for giving understanding about what's happening in a national, international level. So now we would like to get into things which are more in depth and useful for the attendees here. So since they work in various different companies, right, they would also be very keen on understanding what they can do in their company. So one of the things that I guess all of us are very much interested, and given your great wonderful background in energy management, is that what are some of the best practices in energy management, right, globally, and in your 40 years of experience, what you have seen and what you have been doing and what you have been seeing others do. So from that, if you can share some of the best practices, that would be wonderful.
So over the last 18 months, I have managed to open my doors to the world, and through Zoom and through Microsoft Teams. In my opinion, the world has shrunk. I've managed to reach out to many other energy experts, either through my podcast or through one-to-ones with them. Even only yesterday, I had 2 meetings, one in Africa and one in Peru, just from my seat just outside London. So I'm managing to gather quite a lot of detail and information. And it really hasn't surprised me that we're all on the same page. We've all got the same challenges that we're working on together. And this may fluctuate, but I always say that energy is your third largest expense after both properties and people. Now that may fluctuate depending on the type of industry, but in general, that is the rule of thumb. So it's very key that we focus on energy. And if we've got organizations focusing on their energy, and when I say energy, I mean gas, electric, water, and transport. And you notice I incorporate water into that. Water still has a small contribution to our carbon footprint, but water is also very precious to our sustainability regarding the world. So I believe in focusing on all those areas. As I said before in the previous question, people make up 50% of the savings we can achieve. And I believe if we focus on people first and build best practices around the people, we could actually achieve a 10% saving across our energy management. And the areas to focus on there is our set points and our temperature set points. You know, have a standard within your building, have a standard within your organization, and don't, try and get nearest to the outside air temperatures we can. So we can reduce the boiler temperatures, we can reduce the air conditioning, which both those areas really do absorb existing amount of kilowatt hours, and then it obviously gives us the emissions. So if we was to focus on those areas alone and our lighting, that would make a significant impact. So I would place best practice initially on people, and then I would look at the systems. Okay, I've developed what I call my 4 principles. And the 4 principles of energy management are: you review, you realign, you reduce, and then you report. So if we review all our existing systems, all our people, all our products, and all our BMS systems and our time clocks, realign all of those, that will reduce energy, and then we can report the reductions, the art of energy management. So it's providing awareness, it's giving reward, and then it's providing training going forward. We train the people within the building, we train experts around the world to drive this down. All this is great, but it all needs to have some glue to bring it all together. And that's why I always say best practice for me is software, making life easy for us to report. Okay, so they are the best practice, the 3 key areas of best practice that I believe we should focus on.
All right. This makes so much sense that first we need to manage, understand where we are standing, and then start managing, and also use digital opportunities that we are having. So since we are at dearth of time, we would request you to help all the people who are attending to understand some of the low-hanging fruits that we can reach out to in our respective companies and have manage our energy better. So yes, so what could be some of the low-hanging fruits that we can leverage to reduce the energy usage and also reduce subsequent carbon emissions?
Okay, so? Do you want me to answer both these questions at once? Yeah.
Sure, you can
The first,
combine and speak also.
yeah. So basically, you cannot manage what you don't measure. That's what I'm trying to get over from the first point. So that's really key. That's the key benefit for the organizations. And visibility and understanding. You know, when you're providing visibility and understanding to an organization so they can understand their costs of their energy, you can then benchmark it to their products, to their sales of their organization, to maybe their people, if it's a commercial building or it's a university as such, how many people are coming through there or the area. We can start to benchmark and start to have a really good understanding. And when the board and the people who can make those decisions can see that understanding and that visibility, they can make very concise decisions. So for me, that's very important part of what companies can benefit from. And then by doing comparisons, learning from each other, taking the building A and comparing it with building B, taking organization A and comparing it with building B. And we can do that globally as well. If we could do that, that will be all the benefits and bringing all that visibility together. And then I believe this is the last question that you wanted me to pick up on, is, you know, what are the low-hanging fruits that we can use to reduce energy within organizations? And I keep going back to it, it's people. You know, we can make significant savings today. Any organization can go and make significant savings on the way their people are managing their buildings. I worked with a very large leisure club once, and we just changed the way they cleaned the properties. And just by doing that, we changed and we made significant amount of saving. I worked with a football club, and they had their escalators running 100% all day throughout the day. But then we worked with them to shut those down. So we just work with the people and the systems to make a big difference. We need to review our billing. So we need to look at how we are billed. We need to look at how we're purchasing energy and focus on that side of it. So that is a key and possibly low-hanging fruit to generate revenue to reinvest back into energy, because it's quite likely we could be building correctly. Over the last 6 months, I've found some significant issues and mistakes regarding billing. We can look at the existing systems, the time clocks. Are the time clocks set up correctly? And, you know, just carrying out this last point, these 3 points here can be delivered by just you personally as an organization, carrying out your own self-audit and just looking at these areas and focusing on them, or engage an expert to come in, because the expert could come in and the cost of that expert will be paid for himself through the savings. And you look at the balancing of the payback on that and the return on investment of bringing an expert in.
Oh, thank you, Paul Webb. That has been amazing. Explaining almost all the things that we want to understand about energy within a company. And he also explained, why companies should invest more in saving their energy, because it will also in turn save their cost, and they should engage an expert, because the cost of engaging an expert would definitely be reimbursed with the returns on energy savings. So you do feel that companies should invest more in energy, while it would not be their primary motivation, given that they have a sales that they have to take care of, and the profit from these point of sales or from the services that they're offering. So do you also think that the companies, it makes sense for them to invest as much into energy management? And when you talk to the companies, do you see that the people at the top are not the energy managers within the company, but the CEOs or CFOs? So do they feel this is an important topic for the company? What is their attitude towards you generally?
The attitude we are seeing. So I've been I started in the industry when I was 4, so I've been in the industry when I was 40, for 40 years, yeah. So throughout my years of being in this industry, I've seen a transmission of the understanding. So many years ago, there was not focus on energy management, lights left on, and the operation was the focus was on the sales and pushing product out through the door. But as the years have gone on, I feel that energy management has been coming higher and higher within the organization. And it's been I would say the last 10 years that we've actually really seen energy management has been hitting the boardroom and it's becoming part of the agenda. We've still got a long way to go, but it is starting to hit the agenda now, more thoroughly. And we're seeing, many years ago, I would walk around a building and wouldn't see LEDs within a building. Now I'm seeing many LEDs. Many buildings have LEDs installed. We are seeing, my background is building management systems. And when I was practicing the technology of developing and working with BMS, 1 in 3 buildings had a BMS in. Now every building has some form of building management system. And we're now even seeing houses and domestic properties with a form of BMS. So what's happening is technology is coming down in cost, quality is going up, and we're seeing organizations being able to afford and invest in that side of it. And we're also seeing motivation for the board to then start to drive this forward. I still think there's a long way to go, and I think legislation needs to be more aggressive and have more teeth to really drive this forward. I think my message, if there was one to the leaders out there in the world, is you need to make the legislation tougher for organizations to really take action.
Thank you, Paul. And that is very much indeed correct, because it's not just companies who are doing it anymore because of this affordability of technology that you are talking about. So I live in a place called Kerala in India. And even in our colony, all of a sudden, all of us bought energy efficient lamps, which automatically gets turned off if you are not there. And when you come, it gets turned on. So, these things are being caught by even by the individuals, such as ourselves, and in addition to the companies, of course, definitely. And so once again, I really thank you for joining this session, and also on the behalf of Pozhat, we really appreciate you joining. So yes, so hopefully that all the people attending from UK as well as India are had a tremendous amount of understanding through Paul's session. And once again, we understand that you are you're really sought after through webinars. You have your own programs happening all the time. So once again, I really thank you for that. And for everybody who's attending the session, I have shared the in the chat. If you can just scroll up, I have shared the link to the book written by Paul Webb. It's called Becoming an Energy Expert. It's available in Amazon. And it is also free for those who are having Kindle Unlimited. So I'll just once again share the same in the chat. In addition to it, you can also access this webinar using the link given in the chat. So just give me a moment.
And do you mind me just making a very quick announcement?
Yeah,
I have a new book. I have a new book coming out tomorrow called The 11-Week Energy Program. And on Kindle, it's going out for 99p.
Okay.
I've made it a kickstart value to kickstart this platform. This platform will be for global energy experts.
Did you stop using my net? Switch it on. Open laptop. Hi. Hello everyone. My internet got disconnected in the middle. I'm really sorry. So thank you, Paul. Thank you for this, and I also think this would be one of the very first announcements for your book. So we are happy to host that for you. So
And
yes,
Sriram, while your internet was off, I committed to Paul that he wanted help in translating his book in Hindi and
oh,
putting it in the Indian market. So I said that let's make an effort from Porath to do that. Why not? Yeah.
okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for uh, thank you for that, and also for those who are unfamiliar with Priya, ma'am. Which I think if you are from India, that's a rare chance of not knowing Priya, ma'am. For those who are in UK and those who are unknown about Priya, ma'am, let me just give you a brief. So Priya, ma'am, is one of the seasoned professional having an experience of 20 years. She was also behind India's first integrated reporting. That was for Tata Steel. And consecutively, she prepared 3 more integrated reports using IIRC framework, which is the leading framework now for companies because that's what investors favor. And one of the report also won Asia's Best Integrated Report Award. So we have with us one of the foremost expert when it comes to carbon footprint reporting. So we will be basing our questions around that, and also during Q&A, maybe all of you can speak on similar topic. She is also certified on strategy and sustainability from IIM Bangalore. She has completed sustainability leadership program by Cambridge University. She is also certified on GRI, climate change, carbon footprinting, ISO 31000, and Green Co facilitation also. She is also a guest faculty at one of the leading B school in India, XLRI. In addition to that, her expertise lies, where she adds value in the world is by helping companies who are in the red zone or who are in the highest level of ESG risk in managing their carbon footprint and also in reporting them. Some of the companies that she had worked are Titan, Tata Steel, Oriental Aromatics, Sterlite, SR Power, Orient Carbon and Chemicals, among the few. So yes, as we saw, she is one of the foremost expert in climate change, carbon footprinting. So given the fact that recently IPCC has come out with a recent report, we would start with that. So it is told that there is like immediate, rapid, and large scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions required. Otherwise, it would not be possible to have 1.5 degree or 2 degrees Celsius scenario for us. So according to you, how can we meet this 1.5 degree target goals? Or do you think it is not possible and it is too late for us and it is time that we leave Earth for a better planet? So what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Sriram. First of all, I want to thank Paul for the not only for the wonderful, insightful talk, but also very comforting because last few days I have actually been reading this sixth assessment report that has come out from the IPCC, and it's indeed very startling. But the way you have put forth some of the facts, and the fact that you said that 50% of the control is actually through people management is indeed very comforting. If just a bit of discipline we bring in into our organization and into our lives, a lot of problems can just be solved. So thank you for that, and thank you, Sriram, for the wonderful introduction. So coming back to the question, I wanted to start with some data. Can I share the screen? Yes, I think I can.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see my slide?
Yes,
Is
we
my
can. Yes.
Yes. So this is a bit of a data from the sixth assessment report of the IPCC, IPCC being the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was released in early August this year. And I thought I will answer this question with the help of this data. What you're seeing on the screen is, the gray part of the bar chart is the cumulative carbon dioxide accumulated in the atmosphere, measured in gigatons of CO2. And the colored portion is the uptake of carbon dioxide by the ocean and land, which are the natural sinks. Now, what are these 5 bar charts? This particular assessment report comes up with 5 scenarios, which are, from good to very bad to worse. And in all the scenarios, Sriram, answering your question, in all the scenarios, it is mentioned that it is most likely that the world will cross the 1.5 degrees or even the 2 degrees threshold within this century. And this is what I want to show through this graph, is that in all the 5 scenarios, where the first one is the best scenario, the lowest emission scenario, and the last bar chart is the highest emission scenario, you see that as the emissions are growing, the uptake by ocean and land is also growing. But nevertheless, the accumulated CO2 is still there. And the donut graphs at the bottom that you are seeing is showing the proportion of the uptake by land and ocean. And you're seeing that even in the best case, even in the best scenario, there is about 38% of uptake by land and ocean, but more than 60% of the anthropogenic CO2, which is the key cause of global warming, is still there in the atmosphere. So this is a very insightful and a very startling data, which drives home the point that it is very, very unlikely that unless and until we do deep cuts in our emissions, we will not be able to meet the 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees scenario, right? So this is one thing that I wanted to share with you all. And just give me a moment. I'm getting a bit confused with this screen.
Okay, so up until now, it looks very bleak, our future.
Yes, yes, but there is some. So with I'm grateful that my talk came after Paul's, because otherwise it would have looked even more dismal. But it is better that way. And while this is happening, the number of countries who are announcing pledges to achieve net zero emissions over the coming decades is also growing. However, the studies say, the IPCC studies say that even if these pledges are fully achieved, they fall well short of what is required to bring the global CO2 emissions to meet the net zero target by 2050, and meet the limiting the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Now, coming back to the topic of energy, on which Paul has given us so much of wonderful insight. Now, the biggest contributor to emissions is the electricity industry and the transportation sectors, which produce and consume energy. Now, the positive news is that the world does have a visible pathway, a viable pathway to building a global energy sector with net zero emissions in 2050, while ensuring stable and affordable energy supplies, universal energy access, and enabling a robust economic growth. However, this is a very narrow pathway, and it requires an unprecedented transformation of how energy is produced, transported, and used all across the globe. And the scale and the speed of the efforts are very, very critical at the stage of, the climate change that we are in. And this is perhaps the greatest challenge that humankind has ever faced. So I'm referring to the International Energy Agency, or the IEA's roadmap, which sets out more than 400 milestones to guide the global journey to net zero by 2050. and they give quite a few milestones which can be done. So, from today, no investment in new fossil fuel supply projects, no investments for new unabated coal plants. By 2035, there are no sales of new internal combustion engine passenger cars. And by 2040, the global electricity sector should have reached net zero emissions.
Okay, ma'am, just one thing. So if you have shared any different screen that is not visible to us, we are still on the old carbon footprint webinar. So if
No,
you have
I'm
shared,
not sharing my screen. I don't have, I had only that,
okay, okay, sure, ma'am.
I had only one slide.
Okay,
So, so now this pathway, the IEA's pathway also calls for annual additions of solar PV to reach 630 gigawatts by 2030, and wind to reach 390 gigawatts. And for solar PV, this is almost like installing the world's current largest solar park roughly every day. And a major push is required to increase energy efficiency, and it has to be at the rate of almost 4% a year through 2030. And most of the global reductions in CO2 emissions between now and 2030 in the net zero pathway come from technologies which are readily available. But if we look at the period from 2030 to 2050, almost half of the reductions are expected to come from technologies that are currently at the demonstration or prototype phase, which demands that the governments quickly increase and reprioritize their spending on research and development and on demonstrating and deploying clean energy technologies and putting them at the core of energy and climate policy. There is a lot of progress required in the area of advanced batteries, electrolyzers for hydrogen, and direct air capture, which could result in significant impact in meeting the 1.5 degrees target and also the net zero target. So, Sriram, summing up and answering your question, the situation is indeed out of hand. It is very, very challenging. But nevertheless, there is still hope, and there is a lot of focused effort required. It is very, very challenging, right at the policy level, to governance, to implementation level. A lot of investment is required, a lot of focus is required, but it is achievable. Yeah.
okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for explaining that. So in addition to it, so you mentioned that we also need to work together to implement these changes, then only we can achieve close to 2.5 or 1.5 degree scenario. So in that case, the next question would be related on what companies can actually do. The best practices related to reporting. So we already asked Webb and understood some of the best practices for energy management. So you would like to understand what are some better practices for carbon footprint reporting for some companies, and also what are some of the current methodologies that the companies follow, and which are the best among those methodologies.
Yeah, Sriram. So, the best, the most accepted protocol for GHG accounting and reporting is the GHG protocol, which gives a corporate as well as project accounting and reporting guidance. And it helps companies to prepare a GHG inventory, and it also gives you guidance on how to build an effective strategy to manage the GHG emissions, and how to give a very transparent GHG emissions report. So that is number one. And in March 2006, which is pretty recent, the ISO launched a GHG accounting and verification standard series called ISO 14064-2006, which has three parts. Part one is the organization level GHG accounting. Part two is the project level GHG accounting, and part three is, for the first time, any standard is providing a standardized process for conducting verification of GHG inventory or a reduction process. So, this is a very unique and a very, very useful standard. And while part one and part two are, very much compatible with the GHG protocol, part three of ISO 14064 is very unique and first time in the world. So for creating the GHG inventory and validation and verification, the best practice would be to follow these two standards. Going further, for the companies who have matured a little in their GHG journey, they should go for the TCFD reporting, which is the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures. The recommendations of this body was created by the Financial Stability Board in 2017 to satiate the investor appetite to understand the climate related risks of the organization. And the expectation of the investors is to have more informed decisions around investment, credit, and insurance underwriting by understanding this kind of non-financial risks in the organizations because of the climate events. And it is extremely useful for organizations who have already done an inventory to disclose according to the TCFD, which will help them embed the climate related risks and opportunities into their governance and strategy and develop their metrics around these systems and help them in the long term sustainability. Going further, I would also like to mention CDP, which is a global non-profit organization which runs a disclosure system for climate change, forests, and water. And it helps you to, it is a very, very comprehensive disclosure system. But again, the fundamental requirement is that you would have done your GHG inventory. Then only you should go for TCFD and CDP. And then it helps you go to the next level of governance and strategy around GHG management, wherein you can factor in the risks and opportunities around this GHG management. So these are some of the best practices in GHG reporting. And when you said that, how should companies approach the new companies who have not been into this journey, I would suggest that, the first step should be quantification of their emissions across the entire value chain. They should identify their hotspots. They should identify their reduction and removal targets. And then they should identify the strategies and plans for GHG emission reductions. They facilitate the development of projects around GHG management, and then they track performance and progress. So to start with, if they do this much, and then they go to the next level of capturing the risks and opportunities, is the prudent way forward for an effective GHG management. Sriram. So, have I answered your questions?
Yes, ma'am, you've answered it very well. Thank you for explaining on how the first timers should do this and also what are the best practices in reporting. So, ma'am, maybe you can stop presenting now. Now that this screen is we are not using it, and also so that we can see you on the full screen.
Yes.
And
I need to figure out how to do that.
I'll just type from here.
If you can do that, thank you.
So yeah, so also want to apologize to Paul Webb for not calling you sir and constantly calling Priya ma'am. So I talked to her before this webinar and told her that I would not be calling you ma'am and I'll be calling you just Priya, but it seems impossible to me to do that.
Paul, just mentioning to you that I was Sriram's senior in Tata Steel. We worked together and I was senior to him. And I used to really bully him, and I still do that. So he calls me ma'am. He hopes that I will stop bullying him, but it doesn't work. So it is that expectation. So if you start bullying him, he might start calling you sir.
I, may I say, I always like to think that everyone is equal to me.
Yes.
We all have an equal playing field of what we're trying to achieve. But if you have to call me sir, then I accept. But I'm happy for you to call me Paul. Thank you.
Yes. Also, usually we follow it here also, but in the companies where there is more planned or more operations related, or manufacturing companies, there we have a habit of calling sir and ma'am. So anyway, I'm happy to do that. And also, she has been with Pozhat for a long time, and she has been helping all the companies associated with us to go green and to reduce their carbon footprint and to report it in a proper way. So, ma'am, taking all these experiences with all these companies that you've been working with, so for a first timer, which framework should they go about, or what do they usually start with, and what is the right framework for them to start with?
So they should either go with GHG protocol or with ISO 14064.
Okay, okay. So that you had explained already, ma'am. Thank you for that. And we also saw that companies in India are now more pressured through regulations such as BRR or BRSR to report their carbon footprint. BRSR mostly because BRR does not ask for the carbon footprint data. And also in UK, we see that ESOS or UK SECR has been forcing the companies to understand where they are spending more money in terms of energy, and also to take measures to reduce that. So that is some area that as an expert, some of you, I would not say we because I'm not an expert, so at least some of us can help the companies in reducing the energy. So
And just Sriram, one more point to add, that in September 2020, the TCFD recommendations have become mandatory in the UK. And very recently, I think 2 3 months ago, the EU has made carbon neutrality a part of its legislation by 2050. So, these are straws in the wind that we need to look out for. And next 5 years or 6 years or 10 years, we cannot estimate, but it won't be far away that the Indian government also imposes legislations like this. So it is for companies who are alert and prudent, they might as well start doing their GHG management now. Otherwise, they'll be in a in a state of a knee-jerk reaction when such legislations come in the future.
okay, ma'am. Thank you for explaining all these important things to us, and also letting us know, what are the best methodologies for doing carbon reporting? What is the scenario in the world in terms of GHG emissions, and what companies can do? What should they start off with? And thank you also to Paul, like we already mentioned, for sharing best practices in energy management and comparing some of the policies in international level, what all are happening, and also explaining some of the low hanging fruits, which I'm pretty sure that most of the attendees here can make use of in understanding in their company. And also, the 4 steps that the company should be taking: review, realign, reduce, and report, and also leverage digital advancements such as using a software to do the reporting part. So thank you to both of you for explaining all these things. And now I think we can move on to our Q&A session. So now whoever has the question, maybe they can just raise their hand, or they can start speaking, and you can address to whom you are asking this question, and then you can ask the question.
So is anybody speaking, or
Yeah, you can go ahead, Harith.
I can go ahead. Thank you, Sriram. So I would uh, address this question to all of the panelists. Anybody can take it. It is more of a perspective-based question rather than getting into the technical details. So I believe that earlier the focus was more on reporting, and now greening the portfolio, energy portfolio, is something which a lot of focus is being laid on. And what I feel is that, rather, as Paul already mentioned, that people are not going for the certification, the energy ISO 50001 certification, but more emphasis is being laid on field sustainability, or as I said, the greening of the portfolio. So where does the balance lie of reporting and actually greening your portfolio, and declaring that versus not declaring that?
May I start to answer the question?
Yeah.
So we are seeing organizations being forced to declare their data through GHG, through SECRA, through the likes of ESOS. ESOS not so much, because ESOS doesn't, you don't have to declare your data, but through GHG and the SECRA, the data you're declaring actually goes into the domains for everyone to go and view. So you are actually opening your carbon footprint up to the world. Now, by opening it up to the world, what the governments, I'm sure, are trying to achieve there is are getting some form of peer pressure. So, for instance, Coca-Cola will put their figures up. Pepsi-Cola would then see that their figures are, and there'd be some form of marketing aggression can be applied there, because they can see that they're using more carbon footprint against their sales. So by enabling us to look at the other people's carbon footprint will then create peer pressure, and everyone, it will become, I'm a great believer in this, in turning everything into a game. Everyone's competitive. Everyone wants to be the winner. Everyone wants to have the best. I've done some work with, and sadly, we're not doing this no more. The government in the early 2000s in the UK, put together the carbon reduction commitment. And what it did, it created a league table, and then it created a league table that if you was at the top, you got benefits. If you was at the bottom, you got penalties. And that created a really big stir in the marketplace, and organizations started to become competitive. And we started relying on a game to drive the emissions down, which I think was really exciting. And I think really nowadays, that's what we need. We need to create competitions. We need to create some form of excitement to drive this down. Because if we don't, what will happen is we just sit back. We don't need to. We watch other people do the work. When you're all pushing that car up the hill and the car's going up the hill, and you think, oh, I just ease off a little bit because my friends are pushing that car harder than me, so I can ease back. It's the same scenario. When everyone's in the game together to drive it down, it becomes more of a competition and more of an approach for us to achieve. And I think by doing that, we'll make a bigger difference. So we are seeing, the answer to your question, we are seeing the data being reviewed and being reported, but no one's really taken any action on it as yet.
Thank you, Paul. So did that answer your question, Harith?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Paul, for your answer.
Thank you, Harith, for the question.
Yeah, just going back at it, I'm just giving you a little bit of background about my question is because the other day I was a part of another discussion, and I heard a professional saying that they actually had to give up the possibility of getting some carbon credits for their greening project because of a lot of paperwork which was associated with it. And they had missed filing some paperwork before the project beginning, before the project even started. So eventually, because of missing out on the initial paperwork, they could not get the carbon credit. They did have the monetary benefit because their electricity bill had got came down, and there was a partnership with the solar energy firm. So eventually they were able to monetize that project, but they could have gotten more, which they weren't able to because of excessive paperwork.
You know, Harry, that raises another question for me, and that is awareness. You know, I'm doing my damnedest every day to make people aware of energy management legislation. And, you know, I can tell you a story. So ESOS, okay, goes in phases. And the last phase to be signed off, notification, was 2019. I had 2 companies come to me to say, we need help. We missed the deadline. We didn't know. We never knew about it. And I signed off one last week. So we're in 2021 and I'm signing their resource off for 2019. The biggest problem here is what I'm hearing is that not organizations don't understand. One, they don't understand, they've got no visibility. And even though the experts are picking this information up, we're not feeding it back into the industries so they can understand what they need to do. And, you know, your example there of they missed the deadline, they missed putting together the right paperwork. Well, we need to be tidying our shop up here. We need to be cleaning our workshop and making sure we've got, you know, I'm full of saying sometimes, all our ducks in a line. Yeah, we need to get all our ducks in a line. Everyone needs to understand what the legislations are, what they need to do, and how they can benefit from them. And sadly, there is a cost to legislation. But if we do the legislation on time, the cost is low. If we do legislation last minute, the cost is high, and it could be more expensive because you can miss deadlines and miss out on opportunities, or you could be fined. So we've got to, as experts, we've got to provide the knowledge. And as organizations, we've got to be listening to what the legislations are and what they need to be doing.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Harith, for this question. So we have a couple of questions in the chat, and also Sudarshan had one of the queries. He had raised the hand. So Sudarshan, you can ask your query now.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
So I'm really thankful to everyone for giving so much knowledge about the standards and reporting and about energy regulation that has been followed in UK. My question is that like Paul was saying that he is going to form a website and books, launch books and organization for everyone's collaboration. I think we also need a Indian sustainability professionals platform that has to be created. It's high time. And what is in that direction? Is it like Priyam, I'm thinking something, or even Paul is thinking something that in India such collaboration and such platform is created, because it is not just about energy component. Energy is connected to other nexus as well, and there is sustainability reporting. So can't there be a platform, common ground, where lawyers also come? I'm a final year law student from Jindal Global Law School, and I really want to ask, are they thinking of any such initiative to be taken and be set up?
Yeah. Sorry, you want to go ahead?
Go on, I've said too much. I'll let you have a go.
Okay, I'll just speak, and after that, Paul, you can continue. I was just saying that, Sudarshan, it's a brilliant idea. And while we do have some platforms in the country, for example, The CII has, various platforms like the CII GBC, the CII, the Green Co, of which I am a part of. But yes, we could definitely think of a platform where, other sustainability professionals could come and voice their ideas and opinions. And, there could be some crowdsourcing, and it could be a brilliant idea. Maybe we can think about it and take it forward. Yes, I don't think we had this kind of a thought earlier. Paul, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah. So I would like a magic wand, but I have I'm developing a platform. Okay, the Global Energy Experts is a platform for energy experts. So you can go onto my platform and find global energy experts. First of all, okay, so anyone can go on there and find it. As a global energy expert, you can upload your information and your case studies, your notes, whatever you need to do. You can also have lifetime training, because it's really important that we keep on top of this process. And I'm a great believer in securing around about 20 hours of CPD every year. I'm constantly learning. I'm learning today. I'm learning from some of the stuff Priya was saying I would have picked up on as education. And this class is as my CPD today, 1 hour of CPD. So it's really key. And I've aligned myself with Esther to get the CPD hours. So everything I do, I present, you can come to me and I can get you awarded with CPD hours. So that's important for our knowledge going forward. So my platform I'm developing is ready now, but it needs to grow. It needs to grow with people on it, first of all. I would love funding to come in and help me with the magic wand to make it go quicker. If people follow me, they would have seen a post I wrote about my philosophy. So I have a philosophy of bringing energy experts together. And I talk about we all speak different languages, but we all speak the same language, which is so key, so important. And this platform I'm developing has innovation. So it has technology people on there and services that need to come in. And they need to innovate to give us, 20 years ago, we didn't have LEDs. Now we have LEDs, massive savings on the kilowatt hours, 70% savings an LED could provide a property now, which is significant. We didn't have that 20 years ago. Now we've got that because of innovation. We need the next innovation. We need to find out what the next thing is. Renewables needs more innovation. We have solar and wind. We have geothermals. We have hydrogen. It's all there. We have nuclear power. All this needs to be developed further. So we need more innovation. We need a network of people to actually drive this forward, because me on my own can't do that. So the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So if we bring in everyone to work on it, that'd be even better. So we need that network. So the network side of it, I'm linked to, please, you can just type in this on LinkedIn, hashtag clean, and I'll put it in the chat later on, hashtag clean energy revolution. If you type that into LinkedIn, you'll find many groups, a big group set up across the world. There's 180 people all sharing knowledge daily. And, there's 180 people with each person putting that information out there. That's growing. That's a non-profit business in America, which will generating work for people, will generate projects, will generate opportunities for projects and money for these sort of things. So I'm part of a platform and I'm part of a group trying to drive this forward. And please, if you want to be a part of that and help us, all of us, please just reach out to me. I'm really happy to drive that forward.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Sudarshan, for this question. So now we came to know about a global energy network that we can all leverage. So I guess now Paul would be typing that in the chat, which all of us can access. And so we have a paucity of time, and we do respect everybody's time, all the attendees here. So we'll keep the questions short. I guess there is one question related to reporting, which has come from Mahesh as well as Ruchi Gyamlani. So I guess the question is, I think it maybe Priya ma'am can answer that, because people, I would like to understand if there is any standard procedures of reporting and carbon emissions accounting globally. It might be related to the frameworks which are available. And the other question is how to choose a reporting standard for a company, considering there are many standards out there. I guess the response to the first question could be there are like GRI, IARC standards, and they also want to, people would also understand how to select one among these. So, ma'am, if you can please shed some more light.
Sure. So Ruchi's question, how to choose a reporting standard. So first, the basic rule is to look at what are the regulations in your country. So for example, in our country, it is BRR, and then BRSR is something that you must report. So we have to, if you're a listed company, you need to report according to that. And even if you're not a listed company, these regulations even eventually are likely to get rolled out to the other smaller unlisted companies also in the near and distant future. So that is rule number one. And rule number two is look at the maturity of your own company. So like I covered in my talk, if for example, if you're a company who haven't even done the GHG inventory, then you must choose either ISO 14064 or the GHG protocol, and first do the inventorization of your GHG across the supply chain. And then after that, you should go for more mature frameworks like TCFD and CDP. In fact, I have experienced companies who have begun to report to CDP and things like that without having the basic emissions data in place, and they actually land up burning their fingers. So looking at the maturity of your own company is very important. And thirdly, you can always come to Porath and take our help. We will help you and get your report done. And the question from Mahesh is that, is there any standard procedure of reporting and carbon emissions accounting globally? So yes, globally it is the GHG protocol, which is the most accepted standard, and the emission factors, etc., are according to the IPCC factors which are there. So just do a Google for GHG protocol. You can download both the corporate and the project standards from there. That is quite self-explanatory, and you can attend training programs from Porath. We'll explain you how to use those standards and teach you. So come for, is rule number 3 is come to Porath.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess due to paucity of time, we'll just take one more question. So I think Satyendra Singh had a question. Maybe you can raise the query now, and post which we'll close the session.
Yeah, hi. Hello. So actually, I wanted to ask a question, but kind of Priya ma'am already answered. So my question was around like just 2-3 months back, we are trying to calculate our carbon footprint. So I'm working in a retail industry, more retail limited, more retail. And so we are trying to calculate our carbon footprint, especially in our waste. So first we are using the plastic bags for groceries and all. So like it used to be like 1500 metric ton and all, but because of government regulation and all, so now we have to shift some of them to, we have to shift to a jute bag or a paper bag. So we have reduced that plastic to like 1000 or 800 metric ton. But yeah, now this waste is more in paper and jute bag. So I was actually that time looking for some proper conversion method so I can calculate my CO2 equivalent. So I googled, and there are so many standard. So I wasn't sure which to refer, like this much plastic waste is equal to this much carbon CO2 equivalent, or this much paper waste or jute waste equivalent to. So which particular standard to refer? I think just Priya ma'am said that GHG protocol and all would
Yeah,
be.
if
So,
you
like,
KG protocol, you will find the IPCC charts there, which give you
okay.
the emission factors. So look at your material, and it will give you the emission factor which is used in this thing. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and Satya, since we are also connected beyond this webinar, I can also send you those IPCC a report which contains this conversion and
Oh, that
also
would be
GHG
great.
protocol.
That
So
would
that
be
we
really
can
great. Thank you, Shyam.
There's another question in the chat, and I guess we can make that the last question because, yes, while it can be the last question in this webinar, you are all most free to connect to me or Paul if you have any questions, because we'll be happy to answer your questions. But just now I have a train to catch, so I have to rush. Yeah, and we'll be happy to answer all your queries and participate in more discussions through emails or further interactions. But just now, let's take this one last question from Saddam. Yeah, Sriram, can you please help us with that question?
Okay, just 1 minute now. Yeah, so reducing the carbon emission is challenge for the industries like oil and gas, mining, iron and steel. And we track the major source of GHG emission from the sector. In India, iron and steel industry is foundation for other industries like construction and automobiles. So what should be the management plan to deal this?
Yeah, very good question, Saddam. And these industries are called hard to abate industries because they don't have a readily available solution to mitigate their carbon emissions. So, for example, iron and steel industry, I was a part of that industry, and coal is used both as a fuel and as a process ingredient for reduction of iron ore in the blast furnaces. So it has a very, very high carbon emissions. The world's best average carbon emission in iron and steel, if I'm not wrong, is still around 2.3. I think the world steel average is that, and which is still pretty high. And there are a couple of levers that are being used. One is to substitute coal in as a process, material. To substitute coal with hydrogen in the blast furnace to reduce iron ore. That is one. There's a lot of focus on energy efficiency. There's focus on renewable energy, and there is also a lot of experiment being done on direct air capture in iron and steel and these hard to abate industries, because they will emit carbon since there is no substitute for coal. So the solution is to put up carbon sequestration plants, but the challenge there is that they are very, very expensive. I think at the moment the cost of sequestration is somewhere between 180 to $250 per ton of CO2, which really needs a lot of investment by the plant. So these are the challenges, but there is a management plan to deal with it. ArcelorMittal is doing a lot of work in that area. If you go to ArcelorMittal's website, you will see their climate change plans. They have, I think they've come up with an edition 3 of their climate change plans, and they are doing a lot of experimentation in this area. So there is a lot of risk taking and a lot of investment which would be required by oil and gas and iron and steel companies, and also chemical sector, to reduce their GHG emissions. It is a very big challenge.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for explaining this. Yes, thank you to all the participants who have joined us for more than 1 hour. And yes, so if you have any queries, please reach out to me or Priya ma'am or anybody in Pozhat. We would be able to help you address your queries. Some of them maybe we'll have to reach out to Paul and then let you understand. And yes, so if you have any requirements related to carbon footprinting or management or energy management, please do reach out to us in Pozhat. And also for those who have attended, we have shared just now an address or sorry a link to mark your attendance so that we can reach out to you on more details on carbon management, as also share the webinar recording. So as somebody has requested, I'm just sharing my mail address in the chat. And yeah, so once again, thank you for joining our webinar, Paul and Priya ma'am as well. Thank you so much for this.
Okay.
Yes, and if in case any of you have any more queries, please do reach out to me at sreeram@pozhat.com. I have mentioned that in the chat, and yeah, or any of our members. So once again, thanks to everybody, and special thanks to Anshul Nandanwar for arranging this session, and it has gone wonderful. Thank you, Anshul. Thanks to everybody who have joined and all the panel members. Thank you.
Thank you, Sreeram. It was a wonderful session.
Okay.
May I just say sorry, because I have to go very quickly because I have another meeting. May I say thank you very much. It's been an honor to present to you today, and thank you for listening to my words. I'd like to say, please, you and your families, be safe at this time. And I have put a link in there for my podcast. That I'm doing a live show this week on the 1st of September. And please come along. There's going to be experts discussing net zero 2050, which is really where we need to be heading. And your support will be welcomed there. So thank you if you can come along.
Sure,
So
Paul.
please be safe and take care. Thank you.
Yes, we'll be in touch for any energy related requirements that we are having. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. It was a pleasure to have you here. It was really invigorating to listen to you, and we'll definitely work on your book in getting it launched in Hindi.
That'd be
happy to help.
fantastic.
Yeah,
that'd be a great honor. And please reach out to me and come on to my podcast, and let's share the words together. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Take care. Be
Thanks
safe,
to
everyone.
everybody.
So be
Thank you all.
safe. Bye-bye.